Yeah, experts are warning us all the time to be aware of certain hidden dangers that we have in our homes. These are called environmental toxins that can have a big impact on children. Well, our guest today is an expert in that area. It is Michael Wisner. He is the founder of HealthMed. That's a nonprofit corporation, and you look at the diagnosis and the treatment of something you call chemical and drug overexposure?
Well, I started HealthMed because we treated and diagnosed chemical exposure for firemen and police officers and farm workers. I work with the United Farm Workers, for instance, because we found a program that was scientifically independently studied that was written out originally by L. Ron Hubbard, called the Purification Program, that's covered in this book I brought, Clear Body, Clear Mind, was actually a safe and effective way for treating people with chemical exposure. But what started happening was our doctors started seeing children and regular people who weren't chemical or industrial workers who had chemical exposure at
What
levels.
makes them more susceptible than you and I to the problem?
Well, first of all, they're low to the ground.
Smaller kids.
Smaller immune systems. They're not fully formed.
Okay.
They eat, drink, and breathe more than you and I. And their immune systems not being fully formed make them more susceptible. Remember, we set the limits of safety based upon a male adult.
Let's get into these products that you brought here, because we want to clarify that these are products that are safe.
Yes.
Okay, go through them.
Well, for instance, if you take a look at this piece of wood, pressurized treated wood today is used to make play sets and so forth for your backyard swings. That pressurized wood is often treated with arsenic and hexavalent chromium, the same toxin we saw in Aaron Brockovich. And it can dermally absorb onto the hand of a child.
So
and
what do
into
we
his body.
do if we have these things?
You seal it. You seal it with a non-toxic sealer, or you buy wood that's not treated that way.
How often do you have to seal it? Just once?
Maybe once every 2 years.
Okay, go on.
Apples. This looks really healthy, and it usually is, but the reason it's so shiny is it's got wax. It's applied after harvest, and that wax has fungicide in it. The wax itself is actually shellac. And so you're getting fungicides and shellac, which you use on wood, usually not in your stomach, when you eat it.
Now, Michael, I want to stop you on that because, you know, we've heard those kinds of reports before, but it's kind of hard for some people to believe that an entire industry would be doing that to our food supply. You're saying that has been proven.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, there's a California and federal law that says that if you're buying produce that's been waxed, there has to be a sign there at point of sale, and none of the grocers comply with it.
So what do we do if we get it home?
Well, you wash it. And for instance, you can buy a safe cleaner like this, which is used for washing fruits and vegetables. And it will take the residual pesticides and so forth out.
Now, what do we do with all these cleaning products that we need in our homes? Are there ones that we're buying that are not safe?
Yes, for instance, most of your laundry detergents, this does not, have petrochemicals and phosphates and dyes, which can be effective to a child and an adult's neurological system. So if you buy a safe detergent like this, you won't get the petrochemicals. You know, you go through the grocery store, I went through yesterday getting these things for the show, and you can't believe all the household products, waxes, mothballs, none of them have warnings on them.
What are some of the things we will see in children, especially if we don't take care to, you know, get these things out of our homes?
Lowered IQ. For instance, if you take your shoes off at the door, you'll reduce yours and your children's exposure to lead by 40% because we walk it in on the bottom of our shoes. Do like the Japanese do. It's for free. And if you have a question about a chemical exposure, see your family physician. Take a look at the Hubbard program. It's covered on clearbodyclearmind.com.
Michael, thank you so very much for the information. If you at home want more information, go to our website. That is NBC4.tv. Then click on news links and look for the keyword product safety. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Well, we have red snapper.
And welcome back. We mentioned it earlier. Toxins in your home. Well, Miss Allie, I'm not even going to go down the K word.
Miss Sally.
Brought a very dear friend of hers, Mr. Michael Wisner. Michael, you two met on what was kind of weird terms. Isn't that right?
Well, yes. Actually, I had researched with other scientists a program that was written by L. Ron Hubbard that's covered in this book I brought today, Clear Body, Clear Mind. And I had set up some nonprofit clinics in California that diagnosed and treat chemical exposure. And Kirsty called because one of our physicians, Dr. Megan Shields, was also very gifted in nutritional medicine. And Kirsty called and asked if she could see Megan about a nutritional program. So she came in the office and then...
No.
No. You're sugarcoating here, sir.
Here's what happened. I had been poisoned by I was sick, really, really sick. And for about a year and a half, I went to all kinds of doctors. And they told me that, you know, from being crazy to being you know, whatever. And nobody had any clue what was going on with me. And Megan Shields told me about Michael and said, go to him and tell him what's happening to you. So I went to him and I said, this is what's happening to me. I'm, you know, freezing all the time and I'm shaking and I can't walk from this chair to that chair and all these stupid things that were going on with me. And he said, have you had a house recently that was sprayed for termites? And in California, I don't know if they do it here, but they tent the houses and they spray for termites. And I'd moved into 3 houses in 6 months that had been sprayed and termited. So he showed me, he got out his manual and he showed me what happens to you if you're poisoned by that. And it was every single symptom I had. And so he said, you need to do this detox program that's in Clear Body, Clear Mind to get the toxins out of your body.
All of a sudden makes boats in the backyard not seem so bad, does it?
No, it was...
Now, what specific chemical was that?
The chemical is now banned, thank goodness, but the chemical that they used in her home that she had the symptoms of was a chemical called methyl bromide. And that's no longer used because it did cause symptoms like that, particularly with farm workers who had acute exposures. But, you know, what we're talking about today and what Mr. Hubbard talks about in his book is that every one of us, you, me, everyone walking around in America today has up to 250 known toxic chemicals stored in their body. And we're starting to see what that means in terms of health effects, in terms of increased possibility in illnesses like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or autism. It could be environmental triggers that are contributing to these things, to environmental sensitivities, to the increase we see in women's breast cancer. So where does these chemicals building up slowly, insidiously over time, not like where you would notice them all at once, but as they build up inside the body over months, years, do they start to cause or predispose you to having problems?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I was
that's
going to
good.
ask you, as a mom, you know, obviously we're always concerned about the type of chemicals that we have in our house.
You bet.
And tell us maybe some of the things that we have at home that you have a problem
Well, here's
with.
one that's great for moms. I mean, the first thing to do is buy the book and read it because he talks about some of the chemicals in the home and so forth. But here's one, for instance. You know that we have children in the California cities that have IQs that are 4 to 12 points lower by actual study just from the lead in their environment because lead is a neurotoxin. Do you know that the #1 exposure that you and all of us have to lead is we walk it in off the street grime on our shoes? So if you left your shoes at the front door, like the Japanese have done for centuries, and only wore house slippers and so forth inside, you'd reduce yours and your family's exposure to lead by 40% for free.
Now, where does that lead come from?
It comes from vehicular exhaust, from industrial exhaust. It goes up in the air in particulate exposure and pollution, comes down because it's heavier than air. We walk it on the street and we walk it into our homes.
So have you implemented many of these into your everyday life?
Well, yeah, after I did the program that's in Clear Body, Clear Mind, first of all, it saved my life, literally. It saved my life. All the neurological things that were going on with me ceased. Then I worked with Michael. He came into my house. He came into all the other celebrities' houses I know because he's really nice and he does it. And we took out all the ant sprays, all the bug things, all the paints and varnishes and all these things that we have under our cabinet. You know, I clean with vodka and baking soda.
Vodka?
Vodka, you just buy big cheap gallons of vodka. It's antibacterial, it has no smell, and it cleans wonderfully, and baking soda. And so Michael has gotten me down to all sorts of little details that are easy
But you can do things in your home that don't cost less money, that don't have chemicals in them. You can deter bugs, termites, you can wash, you can clean ovens, you can do all these things without paying a lot of money for chemicals that we don't have no knowledge of what they can do to you.
All right. Mr. Michael, thank you very much. Miss Kirsty.
Kirsty.
I cannot do it.
Can you say thirsty?
Yeah.
Okay, say it.
Thirsty.
Okay, so what's my name?
Kirsty.
Bravo.
By the way, the website for the book is clearbodyclearmind.com if somebody wants to take a look at the book.
Thank you very much,
so
both
much
of
for
you,
being
very
here.
much.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Coming up,
Thanks.
spam. It isn't just for bread.
Click on Good Day, and then you'll see Good Day links, and there'll be more information about that.
All right, 8:49. Hidden toxins could be hurting your kids, but how do you know if your child is suffering from toxic overload?
Joining us this morning to talk about that, Michael Wisner from HealthMed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us what HealthMed is first.
HealthMed I started was a series of nonprofit medical clinics that diagnosed and treated chemical exposure. And I did that a number of years ago.
And you're finding more and more things popping up.
What was interesting was when we first started HealthMed, we were looking at programs. If we had somebody with a chemical exposure, how could you treat them? And we actually found it in this book that came out recently, L. Ron Hubbard's Clear Body, Clear Mind. And it was a detoxification program that was then independently, scientifically studied by a group of scientists. I was one, and we found it safe and effective. And so we were treating people like, I worked with Cesar Chavez and other people, farm workers, firemen, and so forth, with this treatment. But we started seeing an increasing number of children coming in with their parents, and we would test them for chemicals like lead or DDT pesticides, and we were finding them at high levels.
And what was that causing? You say things like autism, perhaps, in children.
Well, I mean, there's not a clear link yet, but
Right.
when we look at diseases like autisms or Parkinson's,
They're on the increase.
They're on the increase, and in fact, here at UC Davis, they're doing a study on mercury, DDT, PCB levels, toxic chemicals, in tissue as possibly an environmental trigger to autism.
We have a list of some of the common toxins, too, that Michael's provided for us. Lead, as you mentioned, where do we find lead?
Well, vehicular and industrial exhaust, it goes up the air, it comes down. And we walk most of the lead that we're exposed to and our children are exposed to, we walk it into our home on our shoes. If you left your shoes at the door, like the Japanese have done for centuries,
Right.
you would reduce your family's exposure to lead by 40% for free.
So what you're saying, it goes up in the air, comes down in the rainfall, and then it's on the
track it
street.
in.
Absolutely, it's heavier than air. We walk on it, it's on our shoes, we walk it in the house.
We're tracking. All right, the second one is pesticides.
Probably the most concern, particularly with children, because they have smaller body sizes, they have unformed, fully complete immune systems, they eat, drink, breathe more than we do, and they're lower to the ground. And so pesticides can be very harmful to them because of those reasons. And there are so many safe ways to kill bugs. You know, you don't have to spray everything every day, every week to kill bugs. There's safe things like boric acid and natural plants that can do it without exposing your kids. I mean, a study at USC showed that homes that sprayed just household pesticides once or twice a week, 700 times increases in childhood
Holy
leukemia.
cow.
So something not to do.
Yeah, and also it says over-the-counter drugs. You're talking about kids eating medicine they're not supposed to?
We got to be careful on that for sure, but I think that also parents have to be a little bit gun shy on overly prescribing medications to kids, whether it's antibiotics that are often overprescribed. I feel that a lot of these drugs that are out there to handle this condition they call ADD, I think some of them are very harmful, like Ritalin is as damaging and as the side effects listed by the DEA are as harmful as methamphetamine, speed, or cocaine. So I really would stay away from those kind of drugs.
And a lot of
get
discussion on
opinion.
antibiotics. I mean, it's in everything. You know, hand soap, all kinds of stuff these days.
Well, it's right, that's right. I saw your lead in on the cosmetics, and I've been saying this for years. 60% of the chemicals that go into cosmetics have never gone through full human safety study. Why? Because unlike stuff that goes to the FDA, we're not eating it.
Right.
You're
just applying it externally, so they probably think it's not a good thing
But
to do.
second most absorptive organ in the body is the human skin.
Skin, you breathe it and you smell it.
Yeah.
All right, now here's how to get a toxic-free environment. You mentioned the first one, leave your shoes at the door. That'll leave a lot of the toxins outside where they
Right.
should be. Second one, natural substitutes for pesticides. Give us one good example of
A good one is boric acid. You can put boric acid around the perimeter of the house. I mean, not where children would pick it up and eat it and so forth, and it will kill and deter almost all the bugs without ever having to spray a chemical pesticide.
Is that something you can just buy in the grocery store?
Yeah, or the hardware store, sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
not bad. And natural cleaning products. And there are actually some companies that are coming out. It's a big thing now
Do you
to
know,
find these natural
Marianne,
products.
you can clean most of the stuff in your house with baking
Baking soda and water.
vinegar, water, and lemon. And,
Yeah.
and it's a lot less expensive. And the other thing is, if you go to the website clearbodyclearmind.com, they have a lot of where some of these chemicals come from, and the book covers where some of these pesticides, lead, and so forth comes from as well.
And sometimes aren't kids born with these things, though? Does that mean that their parents are ingesting them?
Well, actually, the first exposure you and I had to toxic pesticides was probably through the placenta of our mother. And then secondly, we got a second dose in mother's breast milk.
Now, what about a lot of viewers? We have a few seconds left.
Sure.
Saying, none of this stuff is really completely linked. Like you said, we don't know exactly what the cause of autism is, things
Sure.
like that. So
well,
how
look
did
at this. The EPA came out last week. They said 2/3 of Americans today have an increased risk of cancer because of toxic exposure we're receiving. And that's from a Republican administration EPA. We're seeing today in the average home, it's 10,000 chemicals today. 100 years ago, it was 100. So I think that if we can reduce sensibly, economically our exposure, if you have an exposure, look at a program like the Hubbard program for detoxification or treatment, and it's less expensive and it's a heck of a lot more healthier for you and your children.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Michael Wisner Wisner with HealthMed. We appreciate your time.
You
and giving
bet.
us some
Thank
good stuff
you.
to think about.
Interesting. Thanks, Michael.
Yes.
Thanks.
Home is supposed to be a place for families to feel safe.
But for an increasing number of people, home is the place where they and their kids get exposed to environmental toxins. Here to tell us about the problem is Michael Wisner, who runs Sacramento's HealthMed Drug and Alcohol Detox Clinic. Good morning, Mr. Wisner. Now, is this problem of environmental toxins getting worse, or are we just more aware of these dangers?
Well, you know, a study just came out from the EPA, which indicates that 2/3 of Americans today are exposed to toxins which increase their risk to cancer. And that's just as of last month that report came out. I became interested in this because when I researched this book, Clear Body, Clear Mind, that L. Ron Hubbard wrote years ago, we started seeing people coming into our clinics who had measurable amounts of PCBs, DDT, lead, and so forth in their bodies. And these things are growingly in medical literature being associated with ill health effects. For instance, the increase in breast cancer in women today has risen from where it used to be as low as 1 in 30 to today where it's as high as 1 in 10.
Michael, what are some signs that we might spot in our kids to show that they've been exposed to these toxins?
One of the classic things to look for when you're looking at children is reduced attention span, reduced IQ. For instance, the amount of lead in cities today, particularly in California, state of California did a health study, which showed that children living in inner city Sacramento, Los Angeles, San Francisco have IQs as low as 4 to 8 points below normal just from the lead in their bodies.
Michael, what are some realistic things that people can do around their own homes to make it safer?
One of the things you can do is, for instance, if you take your shoes off at the door, you'll reduce yours and your family's lead exposure by 40% just because most of the lead we bring into our home, we walk in off the street on street grime. And I think one of the things you could do is if you look at the book, Clear Body, Clear Mind, they have a website, clearbodyclearmind.com. It talks about where we get exposures and things we can do. It's probably good to start with the book and from there look at ways of reducing pesticide exposures in the home, lowering the fat diet because fat in meats contain higher amounts of pesticides, things like that.
Well, you'll make a lot of moms happy, too, if you get the kids to take their shoes off before they come in the house,
There
Michael.
you go.
Thank you very much, Michael Wisner with
much.
HealthMed. We appreciate you spending some time with us this
Time
morning.
now is 6:16 and it's
Very much. As parents, you want to do everything you can to keep your children healthy. But consider this. In the U.S., more than 300,000 children have autistic disorders. Now, you might be surprised to hear what is triggering the autism. Michael Wisner is founder of HealthMed and joins us to talk about what we can do. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
Well, first off, what is autism?
Well, it's a neurological disease. If we had it defined exactly, we'd probably have a cure for it. But it can be triggered, and researchers are looking at that it can be triggered by a host of things. I mean, suspect are certain chemicals that have used to be used in vaccines, environmental toxins, which is my expertise, look to be as a possible other trigger.
Okay, toxins that are pretty common in the household. So what can we do? What do we look out for?
Well, I mean, like I researched this book by L. Ron Hubbard, Clear Body, Clear Mind. And myself and a group of Research Foundation members looked at the Hubbard program years ago because we were getting kids into our clinics, medical offices that I established with physicians that were being exposed to chemicals. One of the most common chemicals we found children exposed to was lead. Lead is ubiquitous in the environment. We find it in air pollution, in old paint, and this lead can be absorbed into a child's body and can trigger a whole host of illnesses, including things that mimic what we have been, I think, misdiagnosing for a large part as attention deficit disorder, because it's a neurotoxin.
So what can we do? We can help to purify our homes for starters.
Well, yeah,
can we
one
not?
thing is we can do is, we have, we invent 6,000 new chemicals in this country every week. We have 3 million since 1965. There's 10,000 chemicals in the average American home. Like, for instance, when you go into the home in the day, if you take your shoes off at the door, you'll reduce your and your family's lead exposure by 40%, because most of the lead that we're exposed to, we walk in to our homes on our shoes from street climb. You know, I used to kid my son who went to a multinational school. I said, Brent, that's why all the Japanese students are so, you know, great in math. They aren't neurotoxic from the lead because they've always been leaving their shoes at the door.
Now tell me about, what if your child has already been exposed? Are there things we can do?
Well, obviously you'd want to consult your family doctor, and there are tests that can be run for lead or PCBs or DDT or chemicals like that. One of the things we found is that the Hubbard program is an effective, scientifically proven method of reducing chemicals that are stored in the body. We studied this program in 12 internationally published peer-reviewed studies. We found it's safe and effective in children who've been exposed to chemicals, firemen that have been exposed to chemicals, farm workers. We worked with the farm workers. We actually studied 20 police officers who went down a chemical fire in Los Angeles years ago, and we found that it was safe and effective in reducing chemicals in the body.
Briefly, because we have about 15 seconds here, but what are we talking about?
Well,
what is the program?
Interesting enough, it's medically proven, but it's all natural. I mean, it uses physical therapy type of exercise, low temperature heat for sweat out, actually sweating the chemicals out. In the scientific study that we did on the Hubbard program, we found that the actual chemicals would come out in the human sweat. We analyzed it, and certain vitamins and nutrients and minerals are supplemented to replace those that are being lost during the therapy.
Okay, let me see real quick. Oh, as a book, if I may, and then definitely I'll shake your hand. So it's L. Ron Hubbard, Clean Body,
Clear Body, Clear Mind, and you can see it on clearbodyklearmind.com, and the book comes out in a Spanish edition next month.
All right, Michael Wisner, thank you very much for coming to tell us about it. All right, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And we go now.
Thanks a lot. Well, we hear about them every day, toxins, but how much attention do we really pay to them?
Not enough when it comes to your child's health, according to many in the medical field. Joining us is Dr. Harry Wong, a specialist in the autoimmune system. What are we doing wrong? I'm just afraid to hear.
Well, the problem is that our society, we're using so many more chemicals and medications and drugs than ever before. Thousands of new chemicals are being used every month. And as a result, we're suffering from some of the side effects from that.
And some of those side effects can be very traumatic.
Definitely.
You're talking about autism?
Autism has been linked to excess toxins, fatigue, tiredness, just not feeling happy or energetic, having a zest for life.
Now, what sort of toxins are we talking about? Are we talking about pesticides that are on your vegetables? Are we talking, and you know, sometimes when I'm traveling, I see a lot of people wearing these masks, you know, and they look
Michael
ridiculous.
Jackson.
Right.
But a lot of people say that it really helps keep out pollution, and I don't know. What's your take on all of it?
Well, there's so many toxins around us all the time. You know, from pesticides to cosmetics, hairsprays, things we use around the house, the garage, that we just can't get away from it. And that's why that I've been involved in a program written in the book by L. Ron Hubbard called Clear Body, Clear Mind. And in it, he outlines how to get rid of these toxins out of the body.
So you have to do some sort of either watch where you are or exercises, or how would you rid the body of the toxins you're talking about?
Well, what it is, and this is what we've been recommending to patients over the years, because with patients come in and they just say, I'm tired, I don't feel good. And when we've had patients read the book, Clear Body, Clear Mind, it's a program where it's a combination of, number one, exercise, then specific vitamins, and then you sit in a sauna and you literally sweat out the drugs and toxins out of your body because they accumulate in your body.
Doesn't sound too difficult.
No. Well, the book outlines it very clearly, and we recommend that patients, number one, get the book, Clear Body, Clear Mind. This is it right here.
Yeah.
And you know, get the book because Hubbard outlines exactly what to do to get rid of these toxins out of the body, and it's completely natural.
You know, I did a story, and this was many years ago. They didn't even know what to call it. They finally called it the 20th century disease. We had a lady who could not be subjected to anything. It had to do with plastics, had to do with anything in the airs, like aerosol sprays or hairsprays or anything. And she had to actually live in a room with a wooden floor, no rugs, nothing that would cause fibers from clothes or anything. And she had to use what was called a Bakelite phone. She couldn't use a plastic phone. She had to use the real old-style phone because it wouldn't cause any problems. And she found that her body was not immune to anything or susceptible to everything is what she found. And so she had to live in almost primitive conditions.
Well, I know a lot of people, they say that their children have allergic reactions to, they don't figure this out, of course, until much later, but, you know, all of the sprays that you use and the cleaners that you use. And so she came out with a line of organic products, you know, and we really do have to be careful about what we are putting into our bodies because, like they say, you are like what you eat and breathe and everything else, right?
Yeah. And they accumulate in the body. So the key thing is learn how to get them out of our bodies. I mean, you want to minimize your chemicals in the household as much as possible, but we can't avoid it. Some people are especially sensitive, like what you just mentioned.
Yes.
But for the most part, they affect every one of us to a degree that make us feel a bit not as happy, a bit more tired. So we recommend patients, you know, in fact, you can take a toxic test.
Really?
Yeah, and there's an 800 number that's 800-334-LIFE. And if they call that number, you can get a toxic test to see if you've been affected by toxins.
Is it just a survey, or?
It's a survey, basically. It's a list of questions that, you know, you check yes or no, and, you know, it's scored so that, you know, the more tired you are, for example, the more wooden you feel, these kinds of symptoms will tell you if toxins have affected you.
And I suppose if you didn't take a test like that, you could just surmise that you're just tired, or you need more vitamins, or you don't really know how you're being affected by the toxins unless somebody does a little, I'm going to analyze what your problems are.
Or, you know, we find patients over the years, you know, they say, well, I'm just not as happy as before. I don't think as clearly as before. And that's actually a symptom of being toxic.
Yeah. Well,
we are ready to detox with Dr. Wong here. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. And once again, the name of the book is Clear Body, Clear Mind.
L. Ron Hubbard. Thank you, Doctor, for stopping by.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
We have much more to come on News Channel 50 Mornings. We'll
Good morning. Thank you.
We're chatting away about this. I have a child. This is very important to me, but it's
You
in
bet.
the headlines, too. We live in a very processed world, and we live in a chemical world. What's the best way to keep our kids safe?
Well, I mean, first of all, you know, consult your family doctor for sure.
Right.
You can do tests. I mean, lead's a big problem today. It's ubiquitous in the environment, and we're seeing it in higher than safe levels in a lot of children today. So one of the things that
But I thought we were done with lead. I thought, you know, no more lead paint, no more lead. I mean, we had the big ad campaigns of the 60s and 70s and 80s.
And it's helped. It's helped. But, you know, when I did the research on the scientific research on this book by Hubbard, Clear Body, Clear Mind, we did scientific studies. We found lead in every child we tested at levels that were higher than recommended. And this is back in the late 80s, early 90s. And what we found was that lead is bioaccumulative. Many of the chemicals that you and I and our children are exposed to don't just go in the body and leave, even though we stopped making them. Like, for instance, we could find DDT in your body. When we did studies on this program by L. Ron Hubbard, we tested tissue in humans, adults, children, and we found DDT, which has been banned in this country since 1976, and PCBs, again banned since 1972, because they're bioaccumulative. In other words, they store in the fat. And as those chemicals build up, we're starting to see them linked in studies to possibly the increase coinciding with the increases in women's breast cancer, with the increase in certain neurological diseases like autism. And while I'm not in the position, and I don't think any studies are clearly being able to conclusively link these, the evidence is overwhelming. You know, we produce 6,000 new chemicals a week in this country.
Well, so what you're talking about, it's more than just avoidance. You're talking about getting them out, detoxing. I mean, we hear about detoxing, right?
Well, we're talking about two things. Obviously, the simplest, least expensive thing to do is avoidance. For instance, if you leave your shoes at the door, if your family, like the Japanese do, leave your shoes at the door, only wear house shoes or slippers, you'll reduce yours and your family's lead exposure by 40% for free.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can do simple things like that. Now, if you have a concern, if you had exposure, past drug histories, if your doctor finds higher levels of lead or other chemicals in your or children's body, then a program like the Hubbard Detoxification Program is fantastic because it's safe. It's proven. There's 12 independent scientific studies published on it. I presented work on the Hubbard program to the USSR Academy of Sciences in Moscow in 1989 before the wall came down. And this is a very, very important program and tool to use.
Now, you say L. Ron Hubbard, and there is obviously controversy around L. Ron Hubbard because it's more than just science. It's a way of life. But there were, you say, a dozen studies based on
what's put forth in the book,
Well, I
right?
don't know about controversy, but I can tell you that I established nonprofit medical clinics with physicians who provided this program. And I know it's provided worldwide through Dianetic centers or through other doctors and so forth. And it's safe and it's effective and it's a valuable tool in dealing with chemical exposure.
But the book isn't out until...
Mid-June, and then it comes out in July in a Spanish edition.
Okay, and it's clear...
Clear Body, Clear Mind, clearbody.clearmind.com. You can check it out on the website.
I sure like the idea of just leaving the shoes at the door.
Yeah, that's smart.
Right there,
Yeah.
40%.
You bet.
All right, sir, thank you.
Hey, pleasure.
Appreciate your time.
Environmental toxins have been the subject of many recent children's health issues. Common diseases such as autism and ADD have been linked to toxins that are byproducts of prescription medicines. How can you shield your child from these toxins? Joining us is Michael Wisner, founder of HealthMed, a nonprofit medical management corporation specializing in the diagnosis and treatment of chemical and drug exposure. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to be here.
Now, why is this happening to our children? Are doctors prescribing the wrong medicine to the wrong children, or why is this happening?
Well, not really. I mean, what we have found are that an increase in autism, for instance, or ADD diagnoses have been linked to now by certain scientists an increase in toxins. For 15 years, I've done a program as a scientist, been a researcher on a program that was developed by L. Ron Hubbard, and it's covered in this book, Clear Body, Clear Mind. And what we did was we'd see kids in increasing numbers coming in our clinics, and they were suffering from like reduced IQ, reduced attention spans, increased sensitivities and allergies. And we started doing analysis, and we found these kids were high in lead, mercury, certain pesticides, and when we treated them with the Hubbard program, which is a detoxification program that gets chemicals and pesticides that store in the fatty tissue out of the human body, they became well.
And so this isn't just from prescription medicine. This may be from lead inside of your home or different chemicals that
Absolutely.
the child is exposed to.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the more current issues today is autism. And we're seeing autism increases by as much as 100% here in California in just the last 5 or 6 years. And one of the studies done at UC Davis has indicated that possibly mercury, benzene, DDT, dioxins, things like that store in the human tissue are causing these or contributing to causing or triggering this increase in autism.
I have heard that autism numbers are way up. What can parents do to prevent this? Should they have their home tested maybe to check for lead or any chemicals inside of their home?
Well, you can do that, but I mean, consult with your family doctor, of course, and they can run certain tests. But the first thing is you want to know if the child or the adult has high chemicals in their body, and tests can be done in medicine. If they find that, then you look at a detoxification program like the Hubbard detoxification program, because it will reduce the chemicals and the potential harm.
What's involved in the detox program?
Well, it's a physical therapy type of program that we studied in clinical studies on over 3,000 patients. And what it is physical exercise, nutritional supplementation, and actually low temperature heat to help excrete the chemicals actually through the skin. So sauna. And so the combination of the three, the nutritional supplementation, the exercise, and sauna, done over a 2 to 3 week program, actually reduces the chemicals. And we studied it scientifically where we actually tested blood, fat tissue levels of the chemicals before the program and after the program. And it's now been published in 12 independent scientific studies as effective for reducing the chemicals and drugs that store in human tissue in humans, both children and adults.
And so there's no way to really avoid all chemicals, all dangerous chemicals.
Well, I'll give you a couple hints. For instance, if you leave your shoes at the door and you only wear house shoes or house slippers in your home, you'll reduce your child and your own lead exposure by 40% for free. Because most of the lead that we're breathing in or taking into our bodies, we walk in on our shoes from the street grime, because lead falls to the ground and so forth. So there's simple things like that you can do that cost nothing that can reduce you and your children's exposure to chemicals.
Okay, again, the book is called Clear Body,
Clear Mind.
Clear Mind.
And you can see this on clearbody.clearmind.com on the web.
Michael Wisner, thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
joining us. Some helpful information.
Great, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Stay with us. We'll be back.
From the desert's news leader, KESQ News Channel 3 at noon with Colleen Sullivan and Ginger Jeffries.
some estimates say every day 9 California children are diagnosed with some kind of autism. And although scientists have not been able to pinpoint the exact cause of the disease, one of the concerns is that environmental factors could be an influence. Joining me here this afternoon is Michael Wisner, and he is the founder of HealthMed and focuses on the diagnosis and treatment of chemical drug exposure with autism. Tell me a little bit about this.
Well, what we've found is I started researching a detoxification program that was originally written by L. Ron Hubbard, who wrote Dianetics years ago, and it's covered in this book, Clear Body, Clear Mind.
Okay.
And what happened was, in clinics that we treated chemical exposures of children and adults, we saw an increasing number of children coming in with chemical sensitivities, things that were misdiagnosed as attention deficit disorder, and what we found was that in many cases, these kids, and sometimes their parents, had levels of lead, pesticides, benzene, toxic chemicals in their blood and their tissues. And when we treated them with the Hubbard program and tested them before and after, their symptoms remitted. So it got our doctors thinking, are we starting to suffer with a lower quality of life? Now we start seeing in the last 5 years, as you mentioned, an increase of autism diagnosis in California that's jumped almost 100%.
Now, how can parents know about what could possibly cause autism in their house? I mean, children are exposed to everything right now.
That's correct. And firstly, we don't know all the answers on autism. One of the suspects is toxic chemicals. There's also chemicals that have been added to immunizations over the years. Some have been withdrawn now by the FDA from going into immunization vaccines. And so what we have to do is say, okay, we know that certain things, common sense, if you expose a child or an adult to too many chemicals, they're going to build up in the body and cause problems. If you expose in a child whose immune system is even more sensitive, then they can build up and cause problems like sensitivities. And so we're suspecting, like a UC study in Davis is looking at the levels of mercury, which are in our teeth amalgams, benzene from gasoline products, and pesticides in the bodies of children who have been diagnosed with autism. So it's one of the suspect chemicals. So reduced chemicals in the home is the best thing.
Now, when you're talking about pesticides, are you talking about what is being treated on agriculture, those kind of pesticides, or what exactly are you targeting with hormonal things going into animals and then eating meat? What exactly for pesticides?
Actually, all those things. So obviously, if you could eat organic foods and vegetables, better. The less fatty foods, the better, because the fat of the animal absorbs the pesticides. For instance, one simple thing parents can do is if you leave your shoes at the door in the home, you will reduce yours and your family's and your children's lead exposure by 40%, because most of the lead that we take into our body, we walk into the home on our shoes off the street.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Now, what would be some of the signs, Michael, if a parent is concerned with their child and developing autism? Are there some telltale signs?
Well, obviously, they'll start seeing certain kinds of behavior. They can have digestive problems. They can start having attention problems where their attention only focuses on a single thing. They might stop communicating like they did earlier. These are all signs to take your child to a pediatrician. If you suspect chemicals in the home, you can the doctor can analyze your child for lead or certain chemicals in the blood or urine. In fact, lead is something that even the National Institute of Health recommends most children get tested for before the age of 3. Yeah. So there's things you can do.
Okay, well, now obviously we are just about out of time. Okay. Michael, where can people learn more about the purification process in their homes or in their environment, trying to keep it pure for their kids?
Really easy. If they go to clearbodyclearmind.com.
And so this is this book right here, yes. And this has quite a few. Obviously, you can buy the book too, and this is available at Barnes & Noble's, any kind of bookstore?
Actually, this book is coming out in mid-June,
okay.
But you can get information on it and order it by going clearbodyclearmind.com.
Okay. Perfect. Michael, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. A lot of great things to think about, and obviously something that we all should be very much aware of.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks again. Take care.
It's going to be all about relationships.
That's right.
We all need help on our relationships.
As we mentioned before, you know, she waltzed into our life as the boss and the lover of Sammy Mayday Malone, former pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. since then, and actually before then, she's won Emmys, she's been in movies, she's a big Hollywood star, and now she's got a house like Deborah's here in Clearwater. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our new friend, Kirstie Alley.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, good to see
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Well, I would welcome you to the Bay Area, but you're pretty familiar with it.
Yes, I've come here a lot for many years. I had a house here once, so.
And you have another house here now, right?
No, I don't have a house here now.
Oh, you don't? You used to have a house.
I used to have a house here.
You had the big Presley mansion, no longer?
No, because after it was the big Presley mansion and then my house, there were a lot of boats parked out in front.
And is that why you sold it?
That's one of the reasons I sold it. It was just a bit of a security thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
One of those things you don't think about when you live on the water.
You don't see that on Extra either, do you? Huh?
See, if you live by MacDill Air Force Base like I do, you wouldn't have to worry about that because you have the Coast Guard helicopter circling all the time, right?
That's exactly right. But I love the area. I'm actually sort of looking for another place.
In the area?
Maybe.
Yeah, just nothing. You know, they can only put those guard gates on the streets. They haven't quite figured it out where they can put it on the water for the boats yet.
Yeah, that's fun. I love the water. I think the beaches here are beautiful.
Aren't they great?
Yeah, I really do. I think they're the prettiest that I've ever seen.
How old are the kids now?
8 and almost 10.
And are they enjoying their summer break?
Yes, this is where they chose to come.
Oh,
They
that's
chose
nice.
to come here in July, which isn't sometimes the choice to come to Florida in July.
It's a little warm.
It's a little warm, but you know what? It's beautiful. I thought, oh my God, we're going to smother to death, but it's great.
It's really not that bad.
No, it turned out
I used to do weather, so.
Tell me that's something you haven't always wanted to do, the old blue
I
thing
have. I've always wanted to do it because I don't get it. Like, here's this, but you can't really see anything. And here's this. I'm thinking, I would really be bad at this.
I'm really good friends with John Winter next door. Maybe we can get you on the 5 o'clock
I
or
would love
something.
to
Wouldn't
be
that
able
be
to
cool?
point at something.
And right in front of that green screen.
What do you do? Like, look out here and you see where you're pointing?
You look at a monitor. Not that everyone at home needs to know this, but you look at a monitor in front of you and you can see the map behind you. There's
So
also
then
a
you
monitor
go.
on the side and the side. So when you turn to the side and it looks like you're looking at the map, you're really looking at a monitor.
Oh my, now see, that's hard. That's a little too hard.
You don't see that on Extra, do you?
You don't. And my IQ is not high enough to point the right direction in the monitor. No.
Oh, you get used
You
to
couldn't be dyslexic.
That would be a
tough.
problem.
Kansas.
So Kirstie Alley, walking around in Clearwater, St. Pete, Tampa, wherever you are, can you just kind of walk around with the baseball hat, or is it difficult?
What do you mean?
Do
Because if
people bother you, recognize you, want your autograph, want to date
They
you?
do all that, but that doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. Do you know? I mean, if they didn't recognize me or want an autograph, then it would sort of mean that my shows were not very successful. And
Well, speaking of your shows, obviously everyone knows you from Cheers and Veronica's Closet and all of the movies that you've done. What projects are you working on now?
I will have a new show this fall, but I can't really talk about it yet because we're sort of in negotiations. And I have a thing called Salem Witch Trials that will come out in November with Shirley MacLaine and Peter Ustinov and Rebecca De Mornay. And then I've just been spending a lot of time with my kids.
And we've seen you a lot on TV on the Pier 1 commercials.
Oh, yes, Pier 1. I love Pier 1.
How do you like that character you play on Pier 1? Is that Kirstie Alley, or is that just, is that like supposed to be
That is
us?
sort of me because, see, here's the deal. It was one of those fluky things in life where I have spent lots of time in Pier 1. For real, before I ever had that job, do you know? And so when they were talking to me about it, I said, really, I said, I've spent so much money in your stores that you really owe me this money, do you know? So, and that's how I shop in Pier 1. I open the doors in Pier 1 like this. Oh my God! Oh my God! Candles! Oh my God! You know, like if I'm having a party, martini glasses, there's $1 million. Oh my God, martini glasses for $1.25, there's $1 million. We can buy $1 million of them. That's how I am in there. So it was pretty easy. They had written me a little more low-key. And then when they saw how I really was in there, even when we were filming in there, it feels like a holiday to me in there, you know.
And there's plenty of them around here in the Bay Area.
There are, and I just love them. I love that there's that many there's so many things in them that I just sort of go wild in them. So they picked the right girl.
I shop too.
Yeah, isn't that fun? There's a couple of places.
I'm
I'm
excited about shopping.
Yeah. I don't usually, but when it's like, I don't care about clothes, you know, except shoes. I really care about shoes. For clothes, other kind of clothes I don't care about.
So we've been asked on this show, for the record, what our favorite television show was, and I did say Cheers. There was some certain magic that was brought to that show. What was it, the writing or the characters or both? What was it?
I think it was that I was really having an affair with Ted and no one knew it.
You can't get that on Extra.
You can't.
Is he the lover that he was on the in the bar?
He's better than the lover than he was in the bar. He's the best lover I've ever had. He's the reason I got a divorce. He's the reason I'm not with my last boyfriend.
At least that's what the tabloids say, right?
He's in love with this woman named Mary Steenburgen, and he's ruined my life, and I can't even really talk about Ted too much because it was so traumatic.
Compose yourself, Kirsty. Compose yourself.
Speaking of the tabloids, is that something difficult to deal with? Or
No,
do you
I
just
love the
ignore it?
tabloids. I think they're fantastic. I think that you can do this with the tabloids. Anything you read, you can pretty much just know that it's the opposite of that. Do you know? If I've just fallen in love with someone, you can just be sure we just broke up. And if we've just broken up, you can be sure we just are going to be together forever. So they're pretty much false.
Now, is that, obviously, I know when you're talking about the tabloids, you're talking about Star and all of those things, but what about the more legitimate tabloids like
Like this
People
show? Yeah.
or Us Magazine? Or this show, right?
Sorry.
You know, I think truly, when you sign on to be a celebrity, you sign on for a certain amount of your life being exposed. And if something is exposed about me that is true, it really doesn't bother me. If something is exposed to me that's totally made up, that would be damaging to my children or to whoever I'm with, then it, you know, it makes you mad for a while. But you really have to look at who buys these magazines. Do you?
Say it to camera 5, Miss Allie.
Do you buy these magazines? Because, I mean, really, you got to take a look inside your heart. Because if that's really what you're interested in, you need to get life. Anyway,
We're going to take a look inside your heart and see what maybe some of those responsibilities are when we return. More with Kirstie Alley when we come back.
Like thirsty.
Oh, God.
Whatever.
Kirstie.
You don't get that on
Brian.
I'm Gail Sierens. Today at 5, a different approach to treating patients with pancreatic cancer. Doctors are trying something new before putting their patients through surgery. See how it works today at 5 on News Channel 8.
Hey, aren't you the 1-800-DENTIST lady? That's me. Pre-screen dentist in your area. That's it. Say, I need a dentist. Can you tell me a really good one?
You should just call 1-800-DENTIST. They're all really great dentists. That's what we mean by pre-screen, and they'll have a lot more information.
Or I could use the Yellow Pages. Just kidding.
First, I take the kids to school. Then I work out. Stop by.
Argosy knows you don't have time for a degree.
Shoot, forgot about kickboxing.
Degree programs that'll fit anyone's schedule, even yours. That's Argosy University. Call today.
Uh-oh, PTA meeting.
Argosy knows you're looking for a degree, not a football program. A school as focused on learning as you. Smaller classes, degrees that lead to careers. That's Argosy University. Call today.
If you've been injured on the job, the workers' compensation law is intended to compensate you a portion of your lost wage benefits and provide you with medical care. I'm Tony Turner. I represent only injured workers. The workers' compensation law is complex, and dealing with the insurance companies can be frustrating. There's a statute of limitations associated with most workers' compensation claims. If you would like to know more about your rights, including the possibility of a lump sum settlement, call me, Tony Turner.
How does a 9-year-old girl escape the clutches of a suspected child murderer? How does an 11-year-old girl save her mother and sister from a deranged attacker? Incredibly courageous kids on the next Montel.
Today at 3 on News Channel 8.
Welcome back to Daytime. It's all Kirstie all the time.
Yeah.
Don't change your TV. This is not taped. This is live. Today is the 8th of
July.
It's like a big deal if we get a gardener on this show, and having you here.
Oh, thanks.
No, that's why having you here is it's huge.
Brian, don't tell her that. She's supposed to be thinking that this is some great, incredible show.
I've seen the show. I think it's a great show. I do, so whatever.
How about that?
Thank you. Thank you. Somebody run that Pier 1 spot, would you?
Kirstie like Thursday. I want to go back a little bit because I got to tell you, I loved you in the Star Trek Wrath of Khan when you shaved your head.
That wasn't me. I'm the girl with the pointed ears.
Didn't you shave your head in that?
No, that was Princess Kambata. That was Star Trek. I was in Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan.
Okay, this is a
Kirstie Alley.
This is
She
a
didn't
huge
shave her
faux
head.
pas.
No, it isn't.
But that's okay. But you were in the Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
And I still loved you in that.
I was one with the pointed ears.
You got her name right.
Kirstie, like
You know,
thirsty.
here's the deal.
Okay, but I still
my
loved you
whole
in the
life
Wrath
I've
of
been
Khan.
called Christy, Kurtzy, Kirstie, so that doesn't even bother me anymore. And most people say I loved you, and because they think I was Princess Kambata, and I'm glad because Princess Kambata was really beautiful.
Okay, so you're telling me that I'm not the first one who's done that?
No, 100 people have done that.
See, I don't feel so bad. Thank goodness.
Maybe a million.
You know, you could look on the bright side. There's all these people who were in Cheers who've spun off all their own TV shows. Kelsey Grammer did very well with his.
Yes,
the
he
other
did.
guys, you know, whatever.
Yes.
He's doing well with himself. Is
Yes.
he big time you now, or is he pretty cool to you?
He won't take my call.
He big times you. Yeah.
Kelsey's great. Everybody in that show is just an amazing person, truly. You know, sometimes you do shows with people and they're jerks, and nobody on that show is a jerk. They're really wonderful, wonderful people, for real. And they always will be. And if you'd like to know the jerks on the other shows, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, listen, let's go over jerks. Jerks.
How about on Veronica's Closet? What was that like to have your very own show?
Well, you know, at first it was swell because we came out of the shoot, the highest rated series in history, and we held that position for 2 years. Our writing got the writing went a little awry on that show, but I think it's because we had there were a lot of, you know, it was an expensive show, and it was, the producers of that show also produced Friends, so they had a lot going on with Friends, then a lot going on with us, and then they tried a third show, Jessie, and juggling all three of the shows at the same time.
Who came up with that character? Was that more like you?
They're all like me, as long as they're a little neurotic. I came up with the character. They came up with the job. I thought I wanted her to be someone who was divorced and someone who, or should be divorced because her husband was cheating on her. And that is not, by the way, real life. My husband did not cheat on me.
You had a husband?
That I know of. No, he didn't. But I like the idea that she was torn, you know, always sort of clinging to this guy. So I sort of created the character.
What about you worked with Woody Allen in Deconstructing Harry? What
Yes.
was that like?
Well, Woody Allen is doesn't speak a lot to the people. Usually on a set there's a lot of chatter between the actors and the directors, and he doesn't talk very much. He said, I said to him, do you mind if I ad lib? And he said, if it's funny. And I said, and if it's not? He said, well, then, you know, basically you got the idea, you're sort of fired. But he didn't say that. But he meant that, I think. So I ad libbed a lot, and he liked it. And the only words he ever spoke to me during the movie were funny. Funny. Funny.
I guess that's good coming from Woody Allen, right?
It's better than fired. Fired.
Yeah.
So fired. Yeah, it was great.
Well, we know how the big shots treat you. I'm still intrigued about the walking down the street thing because I'm.
Are you back on that again,
Because when
Brian?
Deborah did the weather, she couldn't go anywhere.
It depends on where you're walking.
Okay, give us the best story of
Okay,
I'm walking down the street, I'm Kirstie Alley, you're Kirstie, forget it.
Kirstie, like
Kirstie.
And this happened
like
to me.
thirsty.
Yeah, I quit.
Well, I don't know if I have a best story, but it depends. If you're in L.A., walking down the street, people notice you and they recognize you, but they're sort of used to it, so it's no big deal. Same with sort of New York. Let's see, I was in a store yesterday, which I won't mention the name.
Cash and carry.
No, but it's not like it's not. Let's see, it's not competition for Pier 1, but I don't need to say the name anyway. Anyway, I was in this store, and I had to sign about 80 autographs while I was trying to shop with my children. And you know, they're 8 and 10. So they're running like nuts around the store, and I'm trying to shop, and I'm signing autographs, and people are handing me like this. Here. Yeah. Will you sign this? So I don't have a pen.
Will you sign this for me?
But you don't have a pen. Oh, and then they leave the top on it like that, and I go, okay, now I can't write because it's like bending my fingers. I'm going, oh yeah, that looks good. Cherish that, okay.
Do you think I can sell this on eBay?
I was just going to say that. Then it pops up on eBay.
So then I think, you know what I would prefer, what I would mean more to me if I just say, hi, I'm Joe Billy Bob. And I go, hey, Joe Billy Bob, I'm Kirstie Alley. How are you? It's nice to meet you. Well, I'd rather chat with him for a second than, you know, find something that they're going to throw away in the car, probably.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you know. And then my best ones are, and you only get this in little towns. That is, look at her, look at her. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are?
Right in the face. And you just got a feel for them, right?
Well, or shoot them.
That's illegal in some of those small towns.
You got that as the weather. I know you are, I know who you are, I know who you are.
Not to that extent.
What people have they said you were when it wasn't you?
Natasha Kinski.
Can see it.
And Charlotte Rampling, and I think that's it.
Charlotte Rampling.
English, British actress.
Of course. I can't get your name right. How am I going to get...
Charlotte Rampling?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know who she is.
No.
You would know her.
I would.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, yeah, she did. Well, you would know her if you saw her. She's a British actress.
But you're right. It's better than somebody saying you're...
It's better than saying...
Phyllis Diller, right?
Yeah, maybe. It is better. But with this blonde sort of fake hair, it's sort of close.
So can you give us a favor? I hate to go back to the well again, but can you give us like a favorite Cheers memory? Or a horrible
My favorite
one?
Cheers memory was not during the filming. My favorite Cheers memory was we had dressing rooms upstairs and...
There she is.
What am I doing here? That is sad. Where am I? I don't get it.
We could sit and watch this all day.
Oh, God.
All right, continue on with your story. So sorry to bother you with those.
He was so good, Robin Colcord.
He was
good?
rich.
And oh yes, and Tom Skerritt. It's all coming back to me. I don't have a clue right now. Nice jacket. Ted, bad hair. Me, bad jacket.
Now Ted wore
shoulder pads.
Ted wore a piece back then, right? A hairpiece.
You know, most of the time he did. Everyone thinks Ted had this big hairpiece. Ted, at the very towards the end, had this thing where he would wear one like back here, but it was never like that. Eddie Munster thing is totally Ted's hair. He had tons of hair right here. He was getting a little thin back in here, you know. But anyway, the best thing about Cheers, well, I remember one time we were upstairs and I had a Polaroid camera and Ted was taking a shower. So Woody went through the ceiling and down into the bathroom and opened the door and flung it open, and so I took a picture of Ted taking a shower. And unfortunately his head was cut off, or I would have brought the shot to prove it to you. But he's very well endowed, and we were amazed.
Oh, and better than the guy at Wimbledon?
Who?
Never mind that.
Oh, I didn't see him.
Don't even go there.
How was that?
I just saw the,
I just saw the back of him.
So ended off. How was he endowed?
They had the blur thing on it.
They did?
Yeah.
They don't show that on TV.
You can't even get that. You guys can't even get the thing without the blur here in the station?
Mr. McEwen, could we work on that, please? We did broadcast it. We'll check on it.
Yeah, just lose the blur.
All right. Well, Kirsty's staying with us. She's brought someone with her who tells us there may be some environmental hazards that could affect you and your children. We'll meet him and find out more next.
Planning to sell your home or condo this year? You're probably wondering how much it's worth. You can find out free on the web at housevalues.com. So if you're planning to sell, visit housevalues.com today. That's housevalues.com.
Do you experience sudden hot flashes? Are they interrupting your daily activities like work or sleep or just watching a movie? You're not alone. Millions of women experience menopause-related hot flashes. Local physicians are studying an oral investigational medication to treat these symptoms. To learn more about the hot flash study, call toll-free 1-877-58-STUDY. The first step is your call.
If you think you or someone you love has suffered because a doctor or hospital made mistakes, you could be right. The fact is, 3 times as many people die from medical errors as die each year in auto accidents. 1 million more are injured or harmed. If a medical error has caused you or a loved one pain, call Richard Mulholland and Associates today. We have the legal and medical experience to handle your case. Hospitals do make mistakes. You and your family shouldn't have to pay for them.
Looks like our competitors for the Raid Decathlon are raring to go. First a spray of Hot Shot for one team, and Fast Kill Raid for the other. And they're off. Well, half of them are. Those hotshot bugs still showing some spunk, doing the cabinet climb, the sink swim, even the wall crawl, while the raid team is looking kind of dead. Uh-oh, this competition's over. Here's Fast Kill. Fast Kill Raid. Kills bugs, dead. S.C. Johnson, a family company.
Planning to sell your home or condo this year? You're probably wondering how much it's worth. You can find out free on the web at housevalues.com. So if you're planning to sell, visit housevalues.com today. That's housevalues.com.
For more information about today's show, go to tbo.com and click on Daytime.
And welcome back. We mentioned it earlier, toxins in your home. Well, Miss Allie, I'm not even going to go down the K word.
Miss Sally.
Brought a very dear friend of hers, Mr. Michael Wisner. Michael, you two met on what was kind of weird terms, isn't that right?
Well, yes. Actually, I had researched with other scientists a program that was written by L. Ron Hubbard that's covered in this book I brought today, Clear Body, Clear Mind. And I had set up some nonprofit clinics in California that diagnosed and treat chemical exposure. And Kirsty called because one of our physicians, Dr. Megan Shields, was also very gifted in nutritional medicine. And Kirsty called and asked if she could see Megan about a nutritional program. So she came in the office and then...
No.
Sweetie, you're sugarcoating here, sir.
Here's what happened. I had been poisoned by I was sick, really, really sick. And for about a year and a half, I went to all kinds of doctors. And they told me that, you know, from being crazy to being, you know, whatever. And nobody had any clue what was going on with me. And Megan Shields told me about Michael and said, go to him and tell him what's happening to you. So I went to him and I said, this is what's happening to me. I'm, you know, freezing all the time and I'm shaking and I can't walk from this chair to that chair and all these stupid things that were going on with me. And he said, have you had a house recently that was sprayed for termites? And in California, I don't know if they do it here, but they tent the houses and they spray for termites. And I'd moved into 3 houses in 6 months that had been sprayed and termited. So he showed me, he got out his manual and he showed me what happens to you if you're poisoned by that. And it was every single symptom I had. And so he said, you need to do this detox program that's in Clear Body, Clear Mind to get the toxins out of your body.
All of a sudden makes boats in the backyard not seem so bad, does it?
No, it was...
Now, what specific chemical was that?
The chemical is now banned, thank goodness, but the chemical that they used in her home that she had the symptoms of was a chemical called methyl bromide. And that's no longer used because it did cause symptoms like that, particularly with farm workers who had acute exposures. But, you know, what we're talking about today and what Mr. Hubbard talks about in his book is that every one of us, you, me, everyone walking around in America today has up to 250 known toxic chemicals stored in their body. And we're starting to see what that means in terms of health effects, in terms of increase possibly in illnesses like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or autism. It could be environmental triggers that are contributing to these things, to environmental sensitivities, to the increase we see in women's breast cancer. So where does these chemicals building up slowly, insidiously over time, not like where you would notice them all at once, but as they build up inside the body over months, years, do they start to cause or predispose you to having problems?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you, as a mom, you know, obviously we're always concerned about the type of chemicals that we have in our house.
You bet.
And tell us maybe some of the things that we have at home that you have a problem
Well, here's
with.
one that's great for moms. I mean, the first thing to do is buy the book and read it because he talks about some of the chemicals in the home and so forth. But here's one, for instance. You know that we have children in the California cities that have IQs that are 4 to 12 points lower by actual study just from the lead in their environment because lead is a neurotoxin. Do you know that the #1 exposure that you and all of us have to lead is we walk it in off the street grime on our shoes? So if you left your shoes at the front door, like the Japanese have done for centuries, and only wore house slippers and so forth inside, you'd reduce yours and your family's exposure to lead by 40% for free.
Now, where does that lead come from?
It comes from vehicular exhaust, from industrial exhaust. It goes up in the air in particulate exposure and pollution, comes down because it's heavier than air. We walk it on the street and we walk it into our homes.
So have you implemented many of these into your everyday life?
Well, yeah, after I did the program that's in Clear Body, Clear Mind, first of all, it saved my life, literally, it saved my life. All the neurological things that were going on with me ceased. Then I worked with Michael. He came into my house. He came into all the other celebrities' houses I know because he's really nice and he does it. And we took out all the ant sprays, all the bug things, all the paints and varnishes and all these things that we have under our cabinet. You know, I clean with vodka and baking soda.
Vodka?
Vodka. You just buy big, cheap gallons of vodka. It's antibacterial. It has no smell, and it cleans wonderfully. And baking soda. And so Michael has gotten me down to all sorts of little details that are easy to.
You can do things in your home that don't cost less money, that don't have chemicals in them. You can deter bugs, termites. You can wash. You can clean ovens. You can do all these things without paying a lot of money for chemicals that we don't have no knowledge of what they can do to you.
All right. Mr. Michael, thank you very much. Miss Kirsty.
Kirsty.
I cannot do it.
Can you say thirsty?
Yeah.
Okay, say it.
Thirsty.
Okay, so what's my name?
Kirsty.
Bravo.
By the way, the website for the book is clearbody.clearmind.com if somebody wants to take a look at the book.
Thank you very much, both of you very much.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Coming up, spam. It isn't just for breakfast anymore. We'll talk to you about computer applications when we return.
Spam?
Yeah.
That is so Kansas.